Welcome to the UpStreamLife.com. I'm your founder and editor, Vishal Krishna. My guest today is Anuruddh, the founder of GetBeyondHealth.com. It's also called Beyond. Beyond is helping you live better and longer. It's a data-led approach. Believe me, they're building a clean slate of data. It's not built for Caucasians. Again, remember, it's built for Indians to live longer and better. They will make you understand your body better. By the way, this episode is brought to you by Finverse.guru, an upskilling and reskilling app in finance. They're going to reskill all of you in finance as fast as possible. So check them out. So check out this interview and let me know if you liked it. I'm going to get Anuruddh to answer all your questions if you are interested in knowing your body. Hi, Anuruddh. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
You know, ever since I met you, I've fallen in love with healthy living.
Yeah.
You know, living longer. And that's what Beyond is about. I want to set that in context.
Yeah.
A lot of us take supplements as you get older.
Yeah.
The younger ones do take supplements to have six-pack and, you know, look good.
I think steroids.
You know? Yeah, steroids also. Yeah. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
A lot of people in their 40s are dying.
Yeah.
And people who are getting older, they don't live healthy, even though they've done a lot of fitness when they're younger, but necessarily they're not fit after 60.
Yeah.
It's necessary for people to understand their body, and that's what you're here to solve. So tell us about Beyond a little bit.
Sure. So I think at Beyond, we're basically trying to build a preventative healthcare ecosystem that is more based on science, right? Essentially saying that we've started collecting a lot of data about our body, right? Most people get, lab tests done, quality aside. We have a lot of wearables, smart devices, and all of this data is just going into silos right now. Right, your lab tests. I mean, you don't even know what the trend of your HbA1c has been over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Right, that doesn't talk to how your sleep is doing or how your stress levels are doing through any understanding that you could get from the data that your wearable is collecting. So at Beyond, we bring all of that together to give you like a comprehensive understanding of your body and help you focus on your long-term health.
Okay, is that as simple as that? Most of it, you're right, data is in silos. I used to wear a wearable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data of steps. Let's start with the basics so that people understanding their health need to look at it deeper.
Yeah.
Right? You have this wearable, tells you about steps.
Yeah.
Right? And after those steps, if you buy a subscription plan to some other platforms out there, they'll talk about your diet.
Yeah.
But it's still not fixing things. Am I right?
Not really. And I think the one thing you have to get about Beyond, right, as a company is that very little of what we do is actually simple, right? Because health is not simple. But we try to make it as simple for the end user as possible, right? And just sort of looking at your diet in a silo or like trying a diet for 3 months is not going to fix things for people, right? If you look at most people, they try to lose weight on a diet. Typically, once they stop that diet, they go back to their old eating habits, and then 6 months to 8 months down the line, the weight is back, right? So we have to sustainably change our lifestyles, right? And I think weight loss is not like the only problem. It's the problem that a lot of people have tried to solve, but you have modern problems like stress, sleep. People have issues focusing. You have gut health as a major problem, right? So how do you help people solve all of those? Where some of these might be issues that are small enough that people neglect but have very large-scale impacts, sleep being one major such issue.
Wow. I mean, you said it. I mean, stress being a biggest factor for people who get older. I don't know if the younger ones go through the same thing. And does the mind degenerate over time? Is mental health a lot to do with this too?
No, I don't think I can comment on whether the mind degenerates over time.
Yeah.
I think
there's a lot of stress, right?
Yeah.
So how should they fix their shit?
I think stress was a personal issue for me, and I had anxiety since I was since 2015, right? Which is very strange. Like I didn't have anxiety as before that. This was right after I got out of college, joined my first job, and I suddenly started feeling super anxious. Didn't understand what was happening, and I sort of thought that this was something I had to live with and something that just naturally happens. Anxiety went to sort of a peak, and then it would come down, and then I would try something and then it would maybe get better, but I was generally trying to fight the problem with just the mind alone, right?
And you said you're strong enough and you can handle it, and that's what you thought. Okay.
Yeah, you just change your framework, power through it, enter into a podcast like this, be super stressed out about it, and then just power through, right? But today when I'm sitting here, I was not anxious before the podcast, right? Yeah. And I'm just like perfectly okay having this conversation, which is a fundamentally better way of living. The reason that was happening was stress, right? Which was induced due to like very bad metabolism, right?
Okay.
And it's a cycle. So you get more stressed, you get metabolically unhealthy, it impacts your system. You get more metabolically unhealthy, you get more stressed. So your cortisol and your HbA1c and your cholesterol form like a nice vicious cycle, and then you end up on a very sort of bad path, right?
Yeah. Downward spiral is all it is. And you don't realize it till you're 30.
Yeah.
And that's when it hits you, 30, 35 spectrum is when you start discovering, for me, it was gut health. And it's progressively gotten worse. But at 40, I decided to change my life with the data.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm going to be part of your program soon.
Oh, for sure.
But it's interesting, right? You mentioned that stress starts very early in people's lives, but everybody powers through it with the mind.
Yeah.
But the body doesn't take it after a while.
Yeah.
Right? You had a particular experience in your life where a test said you'd lose your muscles or something of that sort, right?
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes?
Yeah.
They said you'd not live beyond 40 or something of that sort.
Yeah, so it was scary.
Talk about that. I mean, you just went for a test.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened.
Yeah, so I had, I think, an experience that maybe a lot of people can relate to in India particularly, right, given how easy access to lab testing is. This was COVID, right? So we were all logged in at home. I was waking up with like some pain in my fingers and my legs were stiff when I was getting up. And I just decided I should get a test, right? And that's what a lot of people do at different stages, right? Like most people, that starts when they're, 40, when they're, worried about their health, or when they're 40 and something starts going wrong. That's when they take their first blood test and realize, oh shit, right? Yeah. In my case, I got that test done. I got back, my reports, and it said that there was a parameter called anti-CCP, which was high. At that point in time, I had no idea what anti-CCPs were. But somewhere at the bottom of that report, it said rheumatoid arthritis, right?
That made sense.
So you're already scared, right? Sent it to a telemedicine company, like, because I was super stressed. I was just like, what is this? And the person there very calmly said, you have rheumatoid arthritis. Here's, some medicines, and then we're going to do some, more tests and figure this out. Obviously, didn't trust that. Got another lab test done. Anti-CCPs came out high again. Went to a proper rheumatologist who was like, this is early signs, right? But everything indicates that it's RA, right? We'll wait and watch. Not going to start any medicines for now. But then if you look at what the what the prognosis is for early onset rheumatoid arthritis, it's basically 2 to 3 years of less pain, and then your lifespan just decreases significantly, right?
Okay,
because
the pain increases.
The pain increases over time. Your body's you're losing cartilage. You're not able to move. It's a terrible disease. I would not wish on anybody. Okay. And that was a very scary place to be, because there was like a doctor.
And you were what, 23, 24?
I was 26.
Okay.
Yeah. So 26, somebody tells you this, and then you're just like, either you can, at that point in time,
your life flashes in front of you saying, what am I going to do next?
Your very short life. And then you look at the very scary sort of thing that's coming up, and you have two options, right? You can either give up, or you can say, I'm going to try and do something about it. And then you start having very stupid thoughts, right? You're like, if I can maybe make this stop for long enough, medical science might catch up and something might happen, right? And you start having harebrained thoughts. But anyway, so I'm never one of those people that would give up. So I decided to go very deep into just understanding what the disease is, what's happening, to just do my own due diligence on the entire piece. And somewhere in my head, I was like, things don't really add up as such, but because it's health, medical disease, you don't ever truly know, right? Anyway, whatever I was doing, I cleaned up my shit. I got my, sorry, I don't know if swearing's allowed on the podcast.
You can swear. Go on.
Okay, cool.
It's not made for kids. Go on.
So yeah, I got my shit together. I cleaned up my diet. I was trying to stay as healthy as I could. It wasn't really having too much effects because I was solving the wrong thing.
Continued, right?
Yeah.
So you changed your diet, didn't work out.
Yeah, nothing really worked out. 4 months later.
And you exercised also on top of that.
How much would you exercise when you have that diagnosis? Yes. But I was doing whatever I could, right? Like I'd read up. I was doing nerdy research. I'd gone into like, what's the operating mechanism for rheumatoid arthritis? Where does it come from? What happens?
You started getting into research mode.
I was full research mode.
But was it a false positive actually? Tell me the truth.
Yes, it was.
It was a false positive,
it was.
Right?
And that's the thing,
so
right?
You didn't really have rheumatoid?
No, I didn't. I just had symptoms. I had, faulty lab test that had this very specific marker, right? Which once it goes up, never comes down. And that marker was basically saying that, your anti-CCP cells are being produced in your body. This is
your
something.
Special case at that time then.
It's actually a lot more common to have misdiagnosis than you would think. And I think that's one of the problems that we're looking to solve.
So how did you find out you didn't really suffer from this? I'm curious now.
Okay, so 4 months later, I couldn't really stand anymore, right? I'm very lucky to have really good parents, right? Called them up, I was like, I cannot
walk anymore.
Yeah, like I can't stay in Bangalore at this point in time. I need to go home. Went home, and I was sitting in the flight, and my knees were like cooling down like jet engines because every time you'd walk, it was just so painful. And went to Lucknow, got a clean set of labs done. Obviously, the atmosphere at home was tense, but my mom is like ever the optimistic, and
so you got the third test done in Lucknow at this point of time, and what did that say?
Everything comes back clean.
You're clean now. Suddenly.
Everything, right? This very specific marker that once it goes up, doctors don't even test again. It's close to zero.
Why did that happen again? I'm curious now. How did it go back to zero?
It didn't.
Okay, so the test itself was wrong.
Yeah, there's no way it could have gone back to
for
zero.
People watching this, if people are watching this, you're saying that once you do your lab test and something comes out, do get yourself tested again. Would you say that?
I would put it another way for people as well, right? Like, how many times has it happened that you've taken a report to a doctor and you've shown it to the doctor, and doctor's like, I don't believe this, let's get another test done, right?
Yeah.
And I've had so many conversations with so many doctors where they're like, hey, if the report is from XYZ lab, I don't trust it at all, right? And I do want to redo it. And that's because, like, in India, we're so focused on getting so many tests for so little cost, but how do you actually make that work?
Wow, you scared the hell out of me, man. So, but I'm saying, people watching this, the younger folk out there, the older ones, I think we're all guinea pigs.
Yeah.
We've been experimented on. I mean, unconsciously, nobody knows. Yeah. Even the lab test company wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's incentives.
That's what changed you, right? You said, I got to solve this.
Yeah.
And that's what Beyond is about. Yeah. That people, on one level, people don't know how they're living. They're just looking off several videos and trying to, Instagram reels and all that.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, I'm going to be like that person today. Life doesn't work that way, though.
Yeah, right? It doesn't, right? Because your health is personal to you. And I think I'm just going to take a step back and look at what my understanding of the ecosystem was, right? So in the US, you have a healthcare system where access is hard.
Yes.
But there is quality, right? So it'll take you 2 weeks to get to a doctor, but generally what they'll be testing for, you look at probably the right panel will be run if you go to a doctor that's good enough. In India, and this is specific to urban India, right? You can't generalize India, we're too big a country. But urban India, right? Urban affluent India, access to a doctor is there, right? Nobody's saying, hey, I need to wait 2 weeks to meet this doctor because I have a cold, right? But how do you truly solve for quality? Right, because any lab test that you would get done here, and I have shown my lab test to doctors who are based out in the US as well. Some of the doctors that work with us at Beyond are based out of the States, right? When you show them the standard lab results run here, they will basically say, this parameter is missing from what I want to see to actually understand anything about this person, right? And that's a huge gap disparity, and we're just running those tests like clockwork, and I really honestly don't know why.
Okay, that became the genesis of the idea that you started Beyond for that reason.
Yeah, paper cuts.
Right, brilliant. So let's talk about everything Beyond now. Today, it is you said it is not affordable. It is an expensive program at this point of time. Yeah. And there's a specific reason you've done that.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. What it does today is you come and take lab tests. You take my blood samples.
Yeah.
Then study my biomarkers.
Yeah.
And then come back to me with what my body feels like, right? Or what it should do. Is that what it does?
Yeah. So we do a couple of lab tests, right? One of them is a comprehensive sort of blood panel, right? Where we try to break down sort of how your body is doing across various areas: metabolism, cognition, strength, endurance. See, at Beyond, we're about prevention. We're about saying that just not diseased is not good enough, right? So what is optimal, right? So we've gone and actually defined, for your sex, your age, right, your activity levels, what are the optimal levels for these biomarkers that they should be based on sort of general population data, right? Okay. And that gives us a sense that if you're tending to say a 5.5 on an HbA1c, a doctor will look at you and be like, hey, I really can't do anything with this, because their main prescription is a medicine, and they're right to not prescribe medicine at 5.5. But for us, we're like, hey, that can be better, right? And that will help you think, feel, perform better.
That you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. What's the maximum that you could do? What's the best measurement of? Is it 7.5 or 5.5 is the average for an average Indian?
No. So you want to be lower. HbA1c lower is better. 7.5 above is diabetic, right?
Thank you. I don't have diabetics, so I want to know. So diabetes is a problem in our country. We'll get into that. Yeah. So you're saying you have to be lower.
Lower.
Okay.
Right. So typically, like for your age, you'd want to aim for like a less than 5.2. Right, HbA1c as sort of where your ideal is.
It's funny, right? I am not a technical guy, but it's interesting that a lot of the common people wouldn't know this unless the doctor says, "Oh, it's high or low."
Yeah.
Right, and you treat that person like God or whatever. Instead, you're saying take control of your life. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, take control. Understanding yourself. Understand the trends of your data because trends are important, right? Your HbA1c is 5.7 today. Sure, that gives me some amount of information, but if between the last 6 months ago and today, it went from 5.4 to 5.7 versus 5.9 to 5.7. Those are two very different outcomes, right?
Right.
And two very different human beings. So those are the things that we do. Like you can basically, give us all of your old reports. We digitize all of them. All that jazz is there. But every test that you get done with Beyond, it keeps adding those trends and keeps forming like an evolving picture of your health.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And most of us don't look at our data itself. We just look for that last. Is it fine or not fine? The doctor.
Is it bold or not bold?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
You don't look at the data, and because nobody seems to understand it, the doctor also doesn't. He or she says you're fine, and that's all, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying that's not enough. It can still progress into being worse.
Yeah.
So that's why you come in and take these tests, and then tell you what you have to do next.
Yeah, I mean, we fundamentally believe that prevention is the way to go, right? If you look at what we've done as society, we've spent trillions of dollars developing medicines, right? So that when the first incidence of disease hits, after that, how do you increase the health span and the lifespan of the individual, right? And that's a very hard thing to do, and we've not been too successful at it, right? Increasing their lifespan. But where you can actually play and where it actually makes sense is to stop even that first incidence of disease from ever happening. Right, and how do you actually get people there?
Okay.
So I think that's the core.
So you said metabolism, strength, endurance, and what else do you check for?
So we look at your hormone levels, we look at your vitamins, we basically draw a sense of how your cognition focus is doing. We draw a sense of how your liver function is.
That's what the blood test tells you, everything?
Yeah, so the blood test draws that profile. We correlate that with your wearable data to understand stress, to understand sleep, to understand what your activity levels are like, right? To understand what are the patterns of behaviors that don't really add up or that add up. We sometimes ship out like a continuous glucose monitor to people so they can monitor their blood sugar levels for about 2 weeks to a month, and then we use that data as input to correlate it with all of these things to figure out where potential problem areas are.
For the skeptics out there, why does somebody have to go through all this?
Okay. Basically, if you want to understand your body, right, and you truly want to optimize sort of the way that you're thinking, feeling, and performing, right, doing all of this makes sense. If you want to sort of live in the dark and shoot one shot and maybe pop a multivitamin, you're really not being optimal. Right, you're not focusing on sort of everything you can be. You're not doing justice to your own body, and then if you end up getting like an incidence of disease, that's not really a place that anybody would want to be. And health only becomes important when something goes wrong. Right?
Okay.
And I think prevention is the right way to go.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that there's muscle loss because most of them are living sedentary lives now.
Yeah.
They don't realize the impact the food's having on you.
Yeah.
Right. They also don't realize the screen time that you have today can have an impact on your body too, and your posture and everything else. Would I be fair in saying that this company Beyond is about trying to get people to be responsible with current lifestyles, to get away from that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to do? Focus on in the future? Say that now you know your shit. How are you going to fix it? So you're an end-to-end, right? You've shipped wearables.
Yeah.
You've checked my the ability of the body with endurance and metabolism and all that.
Yeah.
And then you tell us this is the way you exercise. This is you probably put us in touch with a consultant nutritionist maybe. Probably a physiotherapist maybe.
Yeah.
Does that happen in your company?
Yeah. So all of that happens, and I think again, I think going back to one of the things I said earlier, right, that nothing we do at Beyond is simple, right?
Okay.
But the way we try to present it to the user is simple. So I said a lot of things, like a lot of numbers, a lot of breaking down your health across different areas, finding optimal ranges, doing all of that jazz, right? We have a medical research team that does it, right? We have a data analytics team that does it, and they basically work together. So you have, doctors, clinical researchers working with data scientists to figure out and make all of this happen. But for you, it's simple, right? For you, it's basically somebody comes home and draws your blood, right? You get a report that is simple indexes of where these things are, right? Simple trends of how things are moving over time, and then just a general conclusion summary of what, where things are. We get on a call with you, we explain everything to you clearly in terms of what's happening. There, we're not talking mechanics, we're not talking numbers, we're not saying, hey, let's go down and look at what your WBC count is. So all of that is really simplified for the user, because your health should be simple, right? But there should be somebody who's doing the complicated, hard work of ensuring that there's quality and, all the details are taken care of. Right?
That's why I said live the way you want.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. A lot of the folks come back and say that I subscribed to this program and I dropped out.
Yeah.
They drop off because I don't know why people drop off of health plans, especially with the existing incumbent players out there.
Yeah.
Like you said, people take a health plan in terms of diet. They do it for 3 months, look good for a marriage, and then they move out.
Yeah.
Right? And they're back to being themselves again, and they complain. And there are people who take these fitness programs, fix their body for a particular event, again, a sporting event.
Yeah.
And again, it's back to the whole lifestyle again, where your muscle mass is decreasing and you end up with whatever problems that come about. Then there's this whole aspect of steroids for athletes, right? And that's not a good thing either, we spoke about earlier. So you're saying all this aside, you're saying you need to look at health holistically and not in short-term goals, right?
It sounds kind of obvious when you put it like that, right?
Yeah. Because it is obvious, and I didn't realize this. I don't know, for some reason we never had data. For example, because I played cricket and some form of rugby and football, you were never asked to drink water. Today, drinking water, being hydrated is a big thing.
Yeah.
Simple things like that. If you drank water in the 90s in a game, the coach would really punish you.
Yeah.
He'd say, run 30 more rounds until you dehydrate and you go like that, right? It's interesting.
Yeah.
So simple things have come about where people are saying that you can hydrate. It's good to hydrate.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's a water bottle on the side, you get 2 seconds off, just pop it of water and then go in and play again. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it's funny how this generation has so much more data, but it's so short-term focused.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think they also have so many more incentives, right?
Okay.
TikTok or whatever, Josh or whatever is that equivalent in India at this point, are Instagram Reels, right? So you have so many incentives, right? Your jobs have become extremely sedentary, right? We can all just sit down and work. You can get food delivered at home, and this is something, by the way, that's way more common in India, right? Because Swiggy is just really affordable here.
Yeah, people can just order all these. You have Blinkit and Dunzo and all that. You could just order food and they just turn up at home.
Yeah, so you're not going to the grocery store. Yeah. You're not going out to eat. Like even the walk to the restaurant is gone.
So we're gone.
Right?
We're done with mobility. Yes.
Yeah, so you end up in a situation where like all the incentives are there for you to be eating worse than your ancestors, right? Moving less. And movement has a huge impact on sort of your long-term health. And it's one of the, all of these are the reasons why at Beyond we're looking at what are the sustainable habits you can build. Right?
Brilliant. I think that's the key word, sustainable habits to live better.
Yeah.
And like you said, this begins at just a blood test. Is it the biomarker gives you everything?
No. Okay. So each individual is different. The biomarker gives you a lot of information, right? Very difficult to say, hey, your heart health is X without actually, looking at some of these. But then we also talk to people, right? We spend the time, our team, goes deep with you on where your health is. You do sit down,
you do come home, meet them, or somebody calls you?
It's usually a video call, right? Okay. And we basically talk through what your family history is like. And this is all one-time information gathering, right? Because after this, once we know you, we can then customize everything for you, right? You had a family history of diabetes, we'll customize something different. You had a family history of cardiovascular disease. All of that information will feed into everything that we're recommending for you. And we're not going to say, hey, do a heart thing every day. We will definitely say, do a heart thing sometimes, right? We have a community that fasts 3 days a week.
Okay.
And when I say that to most people, they get really worked up because fasting sounds scary. It's actually not, right? So we will ask people to do heart things sometimes, right? But then in your current diet, like how do you change it so that it's more sustainable? You're eating the right things, you know, and then obviously making sure that your biomarkers are also trending in the right direction, consistent with the effort that you're doing. Or worst case, how do you raise an early alarm for it?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny that a lot of people today, I mean, lead sedentary lives, and sometimes people feel there's no choice.
Yeah.
But you're saying there is a choice. You choose individually today to live better.
Yeah.
And what's the website? Is it beyondhealth.com or
it's
something?
It's getbeyondhealth.com.
Getbeyondhealth.com, right? And that's where you come in and subscribe.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-month subscription.
Yeah, so we're currently on waitlist.
Okay. Why is it on waitlist? I'm curious to know now.
So a couple of things. One, of course, we want to collect a lot of clean data, and there's an interesting thing that we're doing with data that I don't think we've even gone into.
We should talk about it because you guys are very different guys. Most of them, I mean, I'm telling the audience this, Anuruddh, and you'd appreciate it. Most of the other platforms just take technology that's already there or data that's already there, and they try to build on top of it.
Yeah.
You're trying to start a clean slate of sorts, correct?
Yeah, we are. And I think we're basically like we're a startup, but we want to say that, you can't build like a Swiggy in health, right?
Yeah.
You have to be a lot more thoughtful. But then if you are thoughtful and you take care of the details for people, you end up just getting users that stick, right? And on top of that, you can build a great company. That's the thesis, right?
So what are you doing different with data?
So with data, what we're basically doing is we're saying that if you look at any preventative protocol that's out there, right, do X, you look at the peer-reviewed paper behind it, it's usually run on 50 to 200 Caucasian people.
Absolutely.
Right.
You heard that. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, listening to it, it's a very North American probably, or North European thing, or a Western European thing.
Yeah.
And that's the data that gets thrown at the whole world.
Yeah, randomized control trials, like the gold standards, right? Those are run on 50 to 200 people. Those are expensive to run preventative. There's not enough money. All of that is there. But we're basically saying that you have like something like a remote clinical trial, right? So can you collect that data set for the Indian population so that progressively you're recommending better things, right? So you start with that peer-reviewed science as a base, but then can you validate that on the Indian population to actually get to a place where you know what works for people in India, right? What works for people in different parts of India. And surprisingly, you don't need a lot of people to do that, right? But you obviously need to work with those people very thoughtfully to be able to actually collect that kind of clean data.
Oh, it's interesting, right? Recently, you had an influencer. Let's not name the influencer. That person had come into the office, and she went through your program, and she thought she was super fit and healthy, but there were problems, right? And right. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That even super fit people would not be healthy.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of people, and a lot more than often than they expect, right? That you think you're healthy, but then once you get the labs back, you realize that maybe whatever you were doing in your routine didn't have the basic fortifications, right? You could be taking a multivitamin and you could think that it's going to keep all your vitamin levels high, but it's basically not, right? Multivitamins don't really work because the dosages for everything is not correct.
Okay.
So how do you actually go in and make sure that the dosage is right? You're taking the right supplement, you're taking the right quality, which is a higher problem to find it.
I wanted to know about the data part and how different are you from others? I called it a clean slate, and you said yes, but how different is it? You said it's Caucasian data that's there, that we are going to build it for Indians, but how deeper do you get into the data then?
So quite a bit. I mean, everything from like what's the data that we're collecting, right? So what are the parameters that we're looking at, how we're looking at it. I mean, the people that work with us are our champions, right? The users that we have are our champions. And most of the new users that we end up getting are actually like, people that they recommend us to. So those people are also invested in the mission of what we want to do. And so we get a lot of clean longitudinal data about everything from how much movement they're doing to how much, what their blood biomarkers are like. And then, of course, what are the protocols that they're following and what's the net impact of that protocol? Like I said, going back to the remote clinical trial sort of.
These are FDA-approved wearables also that you ship to them?
Yeah, the CGM that we ship is an FDA-approved CGM. It's basically, so anybody in the market that says that they have a CGM device is actually using an Abbott Freestyle Libre, right? Which is FDA-approved. It's on their 3rd generation internationally,
so it's
but we
not
only
their own,
have.
but it's Abbott's.
Yeah, everybody just puts a patch on the Abbott Freestyle Libre, right, and says that we have a CGM.
So that's the game you're not playing. Again, guys, calling it out, they're not playing that game. They're playing a data game for the future of healthcare. We'll get into it. Go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, we ship out an Abbott Freestyle Libre CGM. Our app reads it, right? Which is the innovation that most people have done. And I mean, you basically get that data, but that device is FDA approved, right? The labs that we use are NABL certified, and then we sort of work on top of that to make sure that the parameters that they're testing and sort of the way that they're doing the test, all of that is makes sense, because a lot of things affect your blood test, from the width of the needle that's been used to draw the blood, which sounds like a very minor thing, to when was the blood drawn,
what time,
right? And then when did it reach the lab? If the blood test happens at home, I mean, just think about it, right? I draw a vial of your blood at 6 in the morning, and then it's sitting out in the sun till 1 in the afternoon, and then I take it into a lab and I test it. Right. Obviously, you're gonna get errors. So we make sure like those things are also taken care of, just so that we're getting really clean data.
Okay.
And then understand impact. We have a protocol engine that we've built, right, which is the thing that recommends this. Then a human sort of verifies it. So over time, that protocol engine will get better at recommending sort of what are the set of protocols for a particular person based on all of their data.
Complete curated shop.
Yeah.
And that's why beyond. So you're basically telling the incumbents out there, yes, all of it that you've done, we take all your innovations, take all that data and build on top of that data for people to live longer and better. So that's why healthcare has to change. Today, the incumbents are the startups that do diet plans and just fitness band plans, right? And then you have the hospitals that, again, reactive. You have insurance that's about fear. And then you have pharma companies saying, okay, I don't care as long as you sell my medicine, right? Right? That's how do you address this ecosystem? Do you see that changing? Do you see all of them becoming your partners at some point in time? Because you'll have data of Indians, many Indians who want to live longer and better. That can also change the way people sell you medicine in the future, or you know, the way you buy insurance. Is that the end game for you?
Yeah, for sure. So we're basically the customer obsessed part of all of this, right? Like we only care about the user, right? Which is why I said we're not telling you we innovated on X, Y, and Z as a device or whatever, right? And so once we get all this data, we see ourselves working with the existing players in the healthcare ecosystem and actually saying that, hey, if this person is super healthy, do they still have to pay a very high premium on their insurance? Or if somebody is, paying a very high premium on insurance, if they sign up for Beyond, can that be lowered? It's just like one example, right? Or I think the holy grail of it, can doctors start looking at our data? Right, the way that we collect data, if somebody's using Beyond, they have all their lab reports with Beyond.
It's so interesting. I just want to draw this thought that I suddenly had. Just because I do 10,000 steps every day and my wearable tells me that, it doesn't mean that I'm healthy.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
But that's so strange, right? I mean, people think that just this. I figured out that wearables don't really cut it. I mean, especially the cheaper ones, because when you're driving and you're doing this,
it just counts
it as a movement, right? And that can increase your steps too. So an insurance company should be cognizant of that. Therefore, working with Beyond makes sense because you're removing all this, right? You're saying that, okay, what is the real work done by the individual? Has he really done this exercise? You know all this, right?
Yeah, I mean, we track workout. So we do get the wearable data in terms of whether that person's working out, how are they walking. We have recommendations on what are the diets. We make sure that their supplement stack is correct. But then we also give like the overall picture, right? So you can see the evolving picture of their health from their blood biomarkers over time.
Yes.
Right. Which is both designed to help like an insurance company understand their health, but also for the person to say, okay, I need to act on this, or I've been acting on this and things are going in the right direction.
Okay. Anuruddh, you're so ahead of the future in a sense. You've seen what can be 10 years, 15 years down the line.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how tough has it been for you when you take this to the market and you say you want to do this? Because a lot of people are happy saying, why don't you, again, like the habit thing, right? Take the habit patch and just go for it. And then take some data and do something with it and scale, just sign up 100,000 people in 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And you consciously said no to it, right? And you said, I'm going to focus on the first 1% of the Indian population that comes in.
Yeah.
And then let's see what happens from there, right? And that 1% is also probably people who are, let me not say wealthy, people who are well-to-do today.
Yeah.
The upper middle class segment is what you're focused on.
Yeah.
So what do you want to tell these incumbents out there, people who come and say that, why don't you scale to 100K users and all that? Why don't you want to do that? What are the challenges for you?
So I think why we don't want to scale to, super fast is basically the same thing, right? Like most healthcare startups have tried to pretend that they're Swiggy and that they can really scale. And if you look at them, they're all on like an e-commerce model at this point in time. None of the actual things that they're doing are working. I feel like, and this is sort of the thesis for starting Beyond and saying, is there a sustainable business there? Because there is a problem there, right? But is there a sustainable business there? Is to say that if you can build thoughtfully in health, right? And if I actually get your trust, and I'm able to give you this experience, right? Once I get you in the door, everything makes sense. You become a champion for me, right? And on top of that, I can build a sustainable company. We're not a cheap product. We're not giving this away to you for free, because the expectation from you is also not that, hey, I will get it for free, right? Especially when it comes to health, right? Like price is also a signal for quality for a lot of people, except whatever we do is genuinely expensive, right? So I feel like if we can build sustainably like a thoughtful business, right, we will actually be able to make like a really good startup in health, right? That's customer obsessed, connected to the healthcare ecosystem, and actually giving people great results.
Absolutely. I mean, I would second your thought in the thoughtfulness, because optics apart, a lot of people scale on the optics. For example, something that started off as a chain, as a gym chain, now as a restaurant chain of healthy eating. It's all a trading kind of mentality, that I sign up X people to come into my programs, right? I sign up X people to come into my health plan, or diet plan, pardon, and then they had the yoga model to it, or mental health or whatever. But it's still not rounding up how your body really is feeling. It's so true, right?
And it's not.
I might be boxing in the morning in the pro with the lads or girls or all of them, and then I feel happy. Then I go eat this healthy kind of meal that the same company provides. It still doesn't tell me anything. It just says that I felt good today. Yeah,
you felt good, but your cholesterol could be off the charts.
Absolutely, right. And that's what the influencer that came to your office found out, right? That there was something wrong. So why is that intrinsically not built into the individual? And which is what you're doing. That's the message you're putting out there, right? I'm not a wearable company. I'm not a testing company. You're not a services business. You're a data company.
We're a data company. We have a tech product that we have. We work with people right now because we want to understand, build our systems out, right? And basically say that once you get onto the treadmill that is Beyond, right? So you understand your health once. You're going to come back and sort of keep using us, because we're your source of that
I can second you on that too. I worked out from the age of 9 all the way up till 33 when I really got injured. I tore my adductors when I was 33, and everything was downhill from there.
That must have been painful.
It was painful because I suddenly felt I was 60. I couldn't get out of the car. And each time I would exercise, I felt good. I said, this is great. But my adductors tore for a reason, because I hadn't focused on stretching or even my diet. I'd have 8-9 coffees a day. I'd not hydrate very well. But I look super fit, slim. And then I thought, okay, and strong too. But when it tore, it really showed me that you can't consume coffee because your gut's gone. You're not hydrated enough and things like that. I had not planned. And that's something that people don't realize, right? So you're right. Going to the gym doesn't mean you're fit. Eating healthy food doesn't mean you're really fit. It's a combination of all this. Going back to your point on the old days when people used to walk to a store, right? People would walk to work. We've become very sedentary. And with the lifestyle we live in food and, the way we have our posture, we're writing, all this plays a major role in... so small plans don't help. That's what you're saying.
Right? Or like periodic sort of, sporadic interventions don't help, right? So you can't be super healthy for 3 months and then say everything's going to be fine. You can be small amounts healthy. Like if you maintain 80-20, right? So you're 80% you're eating clean, 20% you're not. Things are fine, right? You balance your proteins and you make sure you're thinking of that in grams while you're thinking of everything else in calories. It'll work out for you for the long run.
They say India is going to be the diabetes capital of the world, the cancer capital of the world, because of the large population set as well. It's also a lot to do with our lifestyle. Right? I hope you change it. Do you think healthcare will change with Beyond in time? Are you backing yourself? And the people are out there watching this, back him. That's more important. Is that the most difficult thing as a founder today, that you are thinking the right things? But when you're executing it on the ground, the reality is different today, because you need to curate well, you need to raise money, you need to manage team. How tough is it for you?
So I think I have a great team. So the team basically manages itself, which is epic. And I think one of the major problems that most founders have, raising money is going to be a bit of a challenge given the current climate that we're in. But I feel confident we can find partners that basically understand the fact that we've tried everything, sticking everything at the wall and throwing everything at the wall and nothing is stuck, right? So why don't we try building a more thoughtful company, right? That's actually rethinking this entire thing from the consumer side ground up. So I think I feel confident that we'll find partners there, right, who have patient capital. Making a case to a customer, I think, is interesting. It's also kind of easy now because the second we say that, hey, data understand your body, and somebody gets one test done with us, it just makes sense. And then you have them in, then you have them hooked, and that sort of works out. So fairly bullish on how this plays out.
And do you think the money is part of it are very important? India as hard as it is to raise money.
Yeah,
you're out there today.
Yeah.
And has it been easy for you? Have people had interesting conversations? Do the family offices get what you're doing versus the VCs, or is there a combination? Why haven't you, with all the thought and the work, you've come from IIT Banaras, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
IIT, right?
Yeah.
So why haven't you left? Why haven't you taken this and gone abroad? Because most of them go to a YC, for example.
Yeah.
And they go do a Delaware Corp and stuff like that and raise money there.
Yeah.
Can you do this in India? I'm asking in all fairness because I know a lot of what you're doing requires a lot of strength and time.
Yeah.
You're properly building a new healthcare company.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank God I'm health conscious.
It's not the patch again,
Yeah.
right? So what are some of the thoughts that you have in this fundraising and living in India and getting this done in India?
So I think a couple of things. One, I want to build in India, right? Like I grew up in the States, but I genuinely love India, and I want to, whatever I'm building, I want to build here, right? That's one thing. Then there's a more logical thing of saying, hey, there's a market out there, which might be a huge market, but there's just crazy competition going on there for sort of people, their eyeballs. It's a heavily regulated market at this point in time, right? India, you have a market where at least the very affluent urban Indians are like their Western counterparts, but their healthcare is not as evolved, right? Regulations are slightly lax, so it doesn't mean, you just have to solve regulations for 2 years before you can even get into the market. So it's much easier to play, right? Seems like it's the obvious place to build, right? The only thing is you have to keep making a case to people, and I think making that case is something that's solvable, right? Like, you can market your way, you can have conversations with people, your own users become your champion, so you can get all of those positive loops going.
No, I hope the guys are going to fund the company. Watch this. Get yourself a test done.
Yeah, for sure.
And then check out the outcomes with data.
Yeah.
You might have been to any gym, you might have had any diet plans, but do check getbeyondhealth.com.
Yeah.
But he calls it beyond. I like the word beyond because he's looking beyond all these aggregators, right?
Yeah.
So finally, are your parents happy now that you don't have rheumatoid arthritis? You're out there to go for the long run.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're super relieved. I think they are some of the best people I know and the best parents in the world. But
your dad's a builder himself, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's actually a professor of chemistry. But
guys, when I say builder, in Bangalore, they'll think he's a real builder. He's an engineer.
No. So he's a professor of chemistry.
But who builds?
He's an engineer in the true sense, right? So,
self-taught.
Yeah, my dad taught himself how to write code when I was like 8 years old. And I think that's partly why I got into writing code, right? Because I always saw him just figuring things out on the computer, right? So he handles most of the computer systems in the university that he works at.
And he can fix all the crap at home, right? If the lighting is bad and all that, he does it himself. He builds his own things.
Yeah, a lot of the light fixtures we have are his. There are speakers in the house that, that he built. It's pretty crazy.
Is he your inspiration? Are there others?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think just how sort of optimistic my mother is, and the fact that like my parents, I've seen them grow a lot, right? And so that just makes you realize that you can change and grow and evolve. It's just a function of choosing to do it, right?
I know you're in the right space. You're getting people to choose that they can change their health too.
Yeah.
What are you reading? What would you recommend? Do you get time to read at all now? Or I like the fact that when you met me, you said, "Look, I asked you about my daughter and what should I do? I have to teach her code?" And he said, "You get into Replit, build something for yourself. Maybe then when she's 8, you can get her. You can engage with her." You recommended Replit. So, are you a guy who's constantly learning? What are you learning of late? Are you reading, learning? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I think Of late, I've been into app development quite a bit, right? So I taught myself Flutter recently, then went into Swift, and then got into Objective-C because we had to, build something where we had to patch like a smart device that we want to connect with, right? Which is super old tech. Like their code super old. So that was one. Replit's one. I really love that as a product, right? In terms of reading, I have two books going on right now. One is Principles by Ray Dalio. I love that book. I always read it starting of the year. And the other is called The Power of Ethics.
Yeah, I've read the former. It's nice.
Okay.
Ray Dalio's.
Yeah.
But The Power of Ethics is good.
It's a horrible book to read because there's just so much on each page, right? That you just read it and then you basically have to meditate on that, right, for some time. But I love those books that you can just like sit and chew, and there's a lot of substance there.
I'm going to check them out. But it's interesting about Ray Dalio. It's public knowledge out there, and his son had mental health issues.
Yeah.
And it's sad that he tried very much to help his kid. But anyway, I mean, tragedies apart, a lot of us have to fix mental health, physical health.
Yeah.
And I really hope Beyond does it for them. Mental health, a large part of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes your physical health, your problems with your physical health affect you mentally.
Yeah.
Right? And,
it does.
And I think India is today, because we're nuclear families, we're individuals, we're kids migrating from one town to another in search of opportunity. I think both the physical and mental health are very important for all of us.
Yeah.
And I hope they discover you at some point of time.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody out there that's, looking to improve their health, looking to understand their health, I think we're probably going to be their go-to place.
And very soon, okay, this is just that initially they're working with that 1% because they're building that clean data.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be able to reach out to you. Many more kids can afford you in the future, I hope so. But do support them. Go to getbeyondhealth.com.
Yeah.
And Anuruddh, all the best to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.